Hey guys, this is Race for Survival. It's Saturday, October 10th, 2015. My website is race4survival.com. Twitter and Facebook pages, look in the description. Also, um, YouTube. I have a few YouTube channels as well, Race for Survival 2014 and Race for Survival. Okay, this is like the latest news roundup as far as immigration goes, and a lot of Merkel. She's really been in the news lately. So, first one, more than 500 migrants rescued off the Libyan coast. This was from today, for Saturday. The Spanish Civil Guard rescued them. I wrote a comment in the comment board. I was surprised, got like 78 thumbs up. But it was basically saying, you're not rescuing these people. You're aiding and abetting an illegal invasion. So that's a good sign that people can see that as well. And this happens every weekend too. All right, tip of the iceberg, no end in sight to migrant wave. That's what they keep telling us, there's no end in sight. Just accept it. Interesting, so this opening paragraph for this propaganda piece, this pro-invasion news, is saying, boo-hoo, we're so sad. Nobody cares after, we put the picture of that 3-year-old washed up dead kid used to, the whole thing, everything around that was based off a lie. They moved the body. The dad actually caused the accident because he was drunk. They weren't even war refugees. They were coming here for dental work. I mean, it was all based off a lie. That's why nobody cares, because everything that you say, everything this ideology promotes is irrational. And so when people meet reality, they say, well, these people don't know what they're talking about because they're not living in reality. 1 month after the body of the 3-year-old washed up on a Turkish beach, and a week after the European Union agreed to secure its borders, the migrant crisis has largely fallen off the front pages and reporters are going home. I don't really think so. And they do concede to that. But the human tide keeps rolling northward, so the invasion continues. It's just that people aren't buying it as much as some kind of humanitarian crisis, as the BS media like this like to do, by exploiting the little dead kid on the beach. And 0.4 million migrants to arrive in the next 2 years. And there's all kinds of predictions similar to this one, predicting hundreds of thousands of migrants. I could predict that there's going to be not one migrant or illegal invader in the next 4 years. And you can do that by shutting the borders and changing your policy. It's not really much of a prediction, it's just something that you plan on doing. So the United Nations, as we all know, is helping to facilitate this human trafficking of third world, not even just third world, just basically non-Europeans. A lot of them are mostly Muslim. It's mostly twofold. One is economic, for low wages, to destroy basically Europe, create a voting base that's going to be sympathetic and vote for them. Ultimately, the left, this post-World War ideology is all about guilt, and so that's why you see the suicidal altruism taking place as far as allowing just an endless number of non-Europeans into their country, which will lead to destabilization and conflict and tension. But this is what they want. So I think it was the individual who created the predecessor of the European Union who came up with it. I should remember his name, but I just heard about it probably about a week or two ago. But basically saying that, Europe is no longer going to be European anymore, and it shouldn't be. So this is their type of ideology. They actually want to change the demographics of Europe. And people like Germany, who is at the head of this. I mean, right now, Germany is in Merkel, they're at the head of this ideology right now, and they're saying yes, they're admitting that this is going to change Germany forever. As people are calling her a traitor, and she goes, this is a good thing. You should embrace this. A new bill called the Adoptive Family Relief Act has been passed, which makes it easier for anti-white individuals to adopt Africans from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So you should be very happy to take in some of those people there from the Congo. They're really going to help the economy and stabilize society and just enrich culture. In an attempt to help these families, this Adoptive Family Relief Act will provide meaningful financial relief by granting the State Department the authority to waive the fees for multiple visa renewals in this and other extraordinary adoption circumstances, says Mitch McConnell. It'll help so many loving families who want nothing more than to open their homes to a child in need. And again, we hear that again, open your homes. Remember the Pope telling Europe and the world, open your homes to these invaders. And I totally agree with this too, though. This is not left-wing versus right-wing struggle. It's a pro-white versus anti-white struggle. And you see this a lot, right? Just by, like, with this major police investigation launched over 5 spray-painted swastikas, and says swastikas represent hate and bigotry, and we're aggressively pursuing those responsible. So, screw the graffiti or anything like that, but, this, you better get on it, right? Because it's happening everywhere. But anyways, my point is swastikas represent hate and bigotry. It's just not true. I even saw another article calling them far right. Well, actually, they were kind of leftist. So it doesn't really matter, because ultimately what they were is they were pro-German, they were pro-Germanic, and then they were pro-European. They were anti-Freemasonry, they were anti-Jewish supremacism. They weren't completely anti-Jewish. We know that because they had Jews in the army, officers. They helped bring them and create their own nationalistic state of Israel. So, but they were all about pro-European survival. It was about, this flag represents self-preservation of the European peoples. But the only thing they can get from that is that it represents hate and bigotry. Well, I guess if you're the enemy of European peoples, which would be mostly Jews, you would be what? You would be hateful and a bigot. So yeah, just like the last video with Randy Quaid, coming over. He was caught. They actually caught him crossing the border illegally, but as far as illegal immigrants that are non-European ancestry, they get a free pass. So, same with this. All of the ghettos and that, and mostly non-European, non-Caucasian areas with graffiti and vandalism, there's no task force. There's no big urgency by the police to do something about it. It's like the knockout game or polar bearing, not much coverage until it started happening to Jews. Then the media and Fox News actually started to cover it. So probably the only reason why that was covered in Boston is because it offended some Jew, and they were able to mobilize the police and the media. So, but the irony is, and this is the last point, well, irony is that half the time those swastikas are actually found to be done by Jews themselves as kind of like a form of false flag. Okay, John Kerry predicts millions of climate refugees will need special status. I've covered this once before about climate refugees. That's the next thing. So he said that the organizations, international ones like the UN, would have to put it into law, this term climate refugee, that would grant special immigration privileges to immigrants claiming refugee status, allowing them to move to other countries. From September 22nd of 2015, first of the 20,000 Syrian refugees arrived in the UK, as the EU, well, it doesn't really matter whether they're voting on it, they got them, right? And they're staying. I saw some videos of, Londistan? Basically a bunch of Africans going at it, fighting in the streets, brawling. British Army calls for more white people to be replaced by colorfuls. Actual ad. Mix it up. Is this the British Army's most diverse unit? So there you go. They notice the way the white man has been placed at the back with his half of his face covered up and in the shade, and fearing that he's ashamed to be white, while the Negro at the front has a megawatt spotlight blasted in his face. Also, the female has her face lit up. I don't know what to make of this, but it says here Lance Corporal Michael Lynch, I think this is the guy that got stabbed, says here he's ecstatic about it. White riflemen are almost a minority here, which is quite a cool thing. He says we got Indians, Pakistanis, and Africans, as if having his own British people replaced by barbarians who never even got as far as developing a sewage system in their own lands is somehow an improvement. Merkel said Europe can't be a fortress. She says there will be no quick, easy solution to the refugee crisis. But the situation is here and now, and they're not going back. Get that? There's no going back. You can't shut the borders. If you build a fence, people will find another way. There's no such thing as stopping the arrivals. The arrivals, she calls them. So she goes on, she says, although she acknowledged that it will be a while, longer than some people are hoping for, she added that no one could reliably estimate how many people would arrive in Germany in the future. Study, this is from March of this year, Germany needs more immigration from non-EU countries. So they need more, they're saying they need more workers. But this is not true because there are people that are unemployed, they're ethnic indigenous Germans. Merkel trashing Europe in Switzerland. This was last month in September. Interesting what she says, though. She says that unfortunately the European Union has contributed large numbers of combatants. They created the terrorists, they're saying. So we cannot say this has nothing to do with us because these are people, often very young people, who have grown up in our countries and we have helped to make them what they are. God, dude, she has got a major guilt complex. Secondly, fear has never been a good guide, either in personal or public life. And she says there's this debate about whether Islam belongs in Germany, but when there are 4 million Muslims here, I think there is no longer a debate about whether Muslims belong in Germany, but Islam does not, or whether Islam also belongs in Germany. To sum it up, Merkel's worldview, Europe shares the blame for Islamic fundamentalism and terrorism. They're integral to Germany. Muslims are more devout than Christians, so Christians are in no position to carp about Muslims. Europeans and European civilization are nothing special. As to defend Europe, Merkel trashes it. It's a worldview shared by nearly all current European governing parties, but completely rejected by Europe's nationalist parties. Then again, in Germany, Merkel's party rebels against her. They wrote a letter, basically officially denouncing her open borders policy as being illegal. They said the policy of open borders being practiced is not compatible with either European or German law. She says that a large portion of the party's members and voters no longer feel represented. German escape helpers are running an underground railroad for Syrian refugees. They trump this up as being a good thing. This is good for the economy. More good news, party leaders for this Alternative for Deutschland or Alternative for Germany are going to file a people trafficking charge against Merkel. So yeah, human trafficking. That's what I think I used that term a couple months ago, or at least in the spring. That's what this is. It's human trafficking. There's other parties in Germany as well that are saying that they need to do something to stem the flow of the refugees. Nationalist Finnish protesters throw stones at bus carrying refugees, and the only thing that the news kept focusing on is the KKK costume. And then the propaganda that rolled out after was, so why did they just leave, right? Because when the nationalists did this, they actually got them to just move on to somewhere else. Finland's no good. Disappointed migrants turn back. No, it's because patriotic Finns actually got out there and did something. Yeah, they slanted that. Living border, 3,000 Germans seal their own border because their government refuses to do so. 2,500 people peacefully assembled. Here you go. It says here, Geert Wilders is right. Europe is being invaded, and it looks like the average Dutchman is going to stand and fight. So Dutch citizens are rioting over the recent Dutch government's decision to give housing to refugees before Dutch citizens. Other places like Sweden and the Netherlands alone, refugee centers are overwhelmed. As a result, the Dutch government has now announced that many refugees with a residence permit will be moved into normal homes, which means newly arrived immigrants will live in houses originally meant for Dutch citizens. In Sweden, elderly Swedish people evicted from their homes to make room for asylum seekers or invaders. I already covered this, but I'll throw it in there. Elderly Germans being evicted from homeless shelter to make room for illegal immigrants. This is all true. Low-income Germans being evicted to make room for immigrants. A German woman threatened with eviction to make way for refugees. 51-year-old was threatened to be evicted to make way for these people. Control media has deliberately blacked out mass German opposition to the non-white invasion of Europe. Basically pointing out how many people are actually going out and rallying ordinary Germans. They keep calling them far right. Again, like we were talking about, it's not far right or far left, it's just pro-European. Germany's far right rises amid refugee wave. Where she was called a traitor by her own people, Merkel's popularity drops to the lowest figure this year. German Jews fear increase in anti-Semitism, not from whites, but actually Muslims. Actor dressed as Hitler on the streets of Germany tells how people begged him to bring back labor camps and the people didn't know what this was for, but he said, people clustered around me. One told me that she loved me. And 120,000 illegal immigrants will be moved from Italy and Greece to Estonia, Luxembourg, and Sweden. Lastly, 400,000 illegal immigrants are going to be deported from Europe after a meeting on October 8th by the EU. Thank you.